Good evening and welcome. I'm Diane Myerhoff, co-host for tonight's town meeting preview show. We love election season. Tonight's show is being aired live on Channel 17 and streamed live on the Channel 17 website. We welcome your comments and questions. Please join the conversation at 862-3966. Tonight, I am joined by Morgan True, a journalist, formerly with Vermont Digger. Morgan, thank you for joining me tonight.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your coming out. And we'd love to have folks call in and tell us what races they're watching, what ballot items they're interested in, school board races. There's just a lot going on.
Absolutely.
Yes, so hopefully we'll get some calls again, 862-3966. So Morgan, tell me, what are you looking at, kind of the overall big picture of town meeting day?
Sure. Well, so I think that there are some pretty exciting races in Burlington.
Okay.
There is the mayoral race, and it's Mayor Weinberger's third contest and seeking his third term. And this is, I would have to say, probably the strongest field that he has faced, with Karina Driscoll running as an independent, two independents actually, with Infinite Colcleasure also running as an independent. And it is fascinating to see that Democratic mayor has two candidates to his left and no one to his right. So.
And tell me, what is the percentage that the candidate has to get in order to win?
Yes.
We were chatting a little bit about this.
Yeah. And so in Burlington, there's no longer instant runoff voting, as they tried out for a little while, but a mayoral candidate has to get 40% of the vote in order for there not to be a runoff.
Okay, and you know what Moreau got in the last, or at least the last election, right?
Yeah. Well, no, so in his first contest in 2012 against Kurt Wright, he ended up with 57% of the vote. Okay. And the next time around, I believe it was Steve Goodkind and Greg Guma, and he ended up with 68% of the vote in that contest. So,
but tighter, could be tighter this time?
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
I would actually expect it to be tighter, but I would be surprised if Karina and Infinite can hold him below that 40% threshold. That would
be a lot.
That would be impressive. And it's interesting. I've been following the sort of machinations going on in the mayoral race. There was some speculation about whether Infinite might drop out and endorse Karina. He actually came out with a statement saying he had felt some pressure to do that. He's now said that he will not do that. And if there were, political operatives or groups kind of putting that pressure on Infinite, I'm not sure that makes any sense strategically, because especially before the election, there's no reason to do that, because, to force a runoff, it doesn't matter who gets what percentage.
Right.
And if Karina's able to get more votes than Infinite, then she would face off with Moreau in the runoff. And so that would be the time, after you've forced a runoff, it seems like you might wait to try and ask for his support and his endorsement, and he may have more incentive to give it at that point. But it's too late for all that now.
Yeah. Rookie mistake?
Hard to say.
Know. Okay.
Hard to say,
all
but
right, we'll keep going here.
Sure.
Tell me about the regional governance issue. This is an overarching one for 7 of the towns, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about public safety. Yes.
So this is one to have a union municipal district to provide regional dispatch services for emergency services.
911 to most of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And and basically the idea being that there is advantages to be gained from sharing those services regionally in terms of response times. Okay. And so what will happen is, this is something that the Chittenden County Regional Commission has been talking about for a long time. It's been percolating for a while. They, I believe, have an MOU drafted and ready to go, and if at least 3 towns approve it on this ballot, then it will take effect for them. Others could join later at another point after another ballot. But the idea would be to gain scale and assist with mutual aid, because when there are emergencies in this region, there's tons of mutual aid already happening, but that basically have to play a game of telephone for that to occur, instead of having a centralized dispatch system where, you call 911 and the dispatcher you're talking to, regardless of what town you're in, is able to, get to the right responders more quickly. And I don't know to what degree this is true, but boosters of this idea also say that it could provide a bit more of a career path for dispatchers who right now can't rise to a position beyond dispatcher because it doesn't exist in their town. This would create a center that would need a director and a manager, and so there might be at least...
This is not a money-saving issue, or
it
it
is,
isn't touted that way.
It is not, certainly not touted that way, and we were talking about this. It's not clear whether there is money that's going to be saved, but that is certainly not how it's talked about. Right now it's talked about as shaving time off of response to in emergency situations, which you know, has obvious value.
Sure, and this is something we won't go into too deeply now, but we're going to spend some time on town meeting night talking more about this whole regional governance idea and other organizations that exist, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's plenty more to come on that if you're interested
Absolutely.
in that
Stay
topic.
tuned.
Or call us and tell us what you think about it.
Yes, please do.
All right, so competition overall for races, low, high, what do you see?
You know, sadly, there are a lot of uncontested seats. I saw City Councilor Kurt Wright out in the New North End saying that this is the first time in his tenure on the council that he is running unopposed.
And he's been there for, do we even know? It's been a long time. I don't know how many.
I'm not going to say because Kurt would call us and tell me I'm wrong.
Let us know.
Yeah. Kurt, if you're watching, how long have you been on the council? But I know it's been, you know, it's been a long time, but that's just one. And there are a lot of uncontested select board seats, and there are a lot of uncontested school commission seats in various towns, but there are also some pretty exciting races.
Okay, so let's segue to that then.
Yep.
So let's talk about Burlington.
Okay.
Let's talk about ballot items first. Why don't we do that,
Okay.
so we can get through those quick if there's anything. We talked about the regional dispatch, that's on there.
Yep.
The school budget.
The school budget, I think people see it as a pretty large increase. We've had a lot of large increases, but I think that it's largely being driven at the state level.
Yes.
And so...
It's a 0.8% increase locally
Yep.
and 7.19 from the state. So it comes to 7.99,
Yes.
or what most of us would call 8%. And that comes if you have a $250,000 house assessed at $358 a year. So that's just for the school piece.
Yep.
And of course, we have other things that go on with how you pay your taxes. So that's a little more complicated.
Certainly, if you whether you pay the homestead rate,
Yeah.
but
Still, it's-
nothing to scoff at.
Right.
That is tough for property owners, but again, and it's certainly passed on to renters too in terms of rents, and so. But I do also think that there are a lot of people who would argue this is what it takes to have good schools, and good schools, even if you don't have kids in them, benefit your community in the sense that you know that it raises up a next generation that's going to get out there and be effective and not cost. And if you're just looking at it through economics, it not cost you money on the back end with the need for lots of services
so we'll
and
see
stuff.
if the voters agree with you. You'll get.
Absolutely.
We'll find that out. Okay, regional dispatch, capital improvements, general obligation, what we call GO bond.
Yep.
Sounds like UVM and Champlain are going to kick the money in for this. It
Yeah.
looks like kind of
And
a
this is
no-brainer from what I can tell.
Something that the mayor has been working on for a long time, negotiating with Champlain College and the University of Vermont. These are large tax-exempt institutions that already make payments in lieu of tax for city services. This would be above and beyond what they pay currently, and it would go towards his 10-year infrastructure plan. He has been saying this for a long time, and we finally see that they will be contributing more money, but it's my understanding that that is contingent on voters passing this.
Yes.
Now, voters have already passed infrastructure bonds in the recent past, I believe in the last election cycle, and this is a continuation of that. It is, I believe, to repave roads, sidewalks, and what they're trying to do is coordinate replacing water lines with when they pave streets so that they're not tearing it up twice.
And we all see that way too much.
Yes, and so I think some of this will also go towards the bike path and continuing to expand that, and so it is basic sort of city services.
Okay, $6 million, part of that 10-year plan. Climate action, are you up on this one?
Not a ton. Obviously, this
Advisory.
is advisory,
Yep.
but the intent is to put pressure on the Scott administration and put pressure on the legislature to really dig in and work towards the state's current renewable goals, the 90 by 50, 90% renewables by 2050. That is, I believe, the target that the advisory question refers to. And, it's for a lot of folks a no-brainer that we need to be working towards more renewable energy. And
we'll see if those are the folks who are voting.
Yeah. I surmise that Burlington will not have a ton of trouble passing that.
Probably not. Probably not. Maybe we'll have some predictions later. Affordable housing, and this is an advisory item around. I think what was floated was potentially adding something to the property transfer tax for houses over $500,000, 1%. I don't think this has to be that. I think this is saying they want to take a look at.
It's very broad, but
broader.
I think
Yeah,
you're right that is
discussed.
a proposal.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's basically to try and raise more money for the Housing Trust Fund, which the city is able to use to work with nonprofits and others to leverage more affordable housing when there are developments in Burlington.
Okay, and this is the one that's going to get the most attention, I suspect, is the F-35.
Yes.
Not on the ballot in Winooski, not on the ballot in South Burlington. So we've seen some really wild council races for those in the past. They're quiet at the moment, but
I think for the advocates, it's quite a coup to have this on the ballot. My former colleague Jasper Craven at VT Digger just had a story on this, really, which I thought broke some news in the sense that the mayor said, were he to be reelected and were voters to really put their support behind this, he would be willing to hear that message and revisit this issue. He's not sure what can be done, but it's an excellent article. Check out VT Digger, go read it, because it talks about other states and other scenarios where municipalities, advocacy groups, elected officials have banded together to try and stop the basing of various different Air Force fighter jets in their communities, or to at least impact basing decisions in that, if they couldn't completely stop what was going on, they were able to alter the plans.
And even this late in the game, too, right? That was, I think, what was particularly interesting about it, because I think most people are saying, oh, it's too late.
Certainly that is what the congressional delegation would say. Senator Leahy, that's what he told, his chief of staff told Jasper, and it may be that they're right. I mean, I know that the Vermont Air National Guard has come out and said that they feel this question is misleading, that it could create a false sense that these plans could shift when they would argue that they can't. The planes are supposed to rise in the fall of 2019. But I do think that this is an interesting thing to watch, especially as the results come in, because if it's a tepid support, it's really a way to gauge public support for the F-35, or to turn that on its head, opposition to its arrival.
Right. And we'll be here on town meeting night, and we'll be looking at those results. So
yes, join us.
Make sure you join us on that, because that will be one we'll be following very closely. And lastly, but not leastly, raising the age for sale of tobacco from 18 to 21.
And I don't know quite the
also.
genesis of this is here in Burlington, but I do know that State Rep George Till has made this an issue. He's a physician, one of the few in the legislature. I think the basic idea is around public health. If you can delay people from starting to smoke at a younger age, they're less likely to maybe pick it up as a habit. There's obvious health consequences of smoking. At the same time, a lot of folks take the more libertarian position that, hey, if you can go fight and die for our country at 18, you ought to be able to pick up a pack of cigarettes should you so choose.
Okay, so we'll see what the voters have to say about that.
Indeed.
All right, let's talk about council and school board
elections.
We have a number of races that are uncontested. Incumbents will stay in. Sharon Busher in Ward 1.
Yep. And there's
Max
no
Tracy.
Competition in the school commission Ward 1.
Same thing in Ward 2.
Yep.
Max Tracy will stay, and Stephen Carey, the school commissioner, will also stay. So now Ward 3. This is the interesting one, right?
Ward 3. All eyes on Ward 3.
Yeah, very interesting. This is an
Three
open
strong
seat,
candidates,
too.
too.
So
it is an open seat. The incumbent, Sarah Giannoni, has said that she will not seek re-election, and that, I think, led to the contest that we see. People always hesitant to take on incumbents. And so we have Lizzie Haskell, a Democrat, somewhat recent UVM grad, who was very involved with the College Democrats. I know that she was a rower. She was a coxswain for the UVM rowing team, and seems very earnest, very eager. I would imagine that she is planning to be involved in politics far beyond this. Should she not win, I think that this is a name we're going to continue to hear in Democratic politics in Burlington.
So toe in the water.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she, I believe, has run a strong campaign.
She's been out there. I've seen
As a
her around
Ward 3
town.
resident myself, I have gotten her campaign material, and same with the other candidates. And so, but yes, I think that she's running a strong campaign. And so are the other two. Jim Lockridge of Big Heavy World fame. He is running as an independent, and I believe running on a campaign to bring more citizen involvement to resident involvement to a lot of the public processes. He's made his voice heard on the Memorial Auditorium issue. That's not specific to Ward 3, but it is one that I believe he would like to address if elected. He would like to see that remain sort of a community space. And there are a lot of questions around what the mayor's plans are for that and what the city's plans are for that building. And so the final candidate, Brian Pine, former city councilor, he's the progressive. A lot of experience there, a lot of institutional knowledge.
Worked for the city for many years.
Yes, yep. And so 3 really strong candidates, and I would not even hazard a guess. I might give the edge to Brian just in that he's run campaigns.
He's been around, yeah.
He's not, his neighbors won't be surprised to see him. They might know who he is.
Yep.
I don't know, that could count for a lot. Depending on turnout, but would not count out either of the other 2 candidates. I really do think this is the most exciting race on town meeting day.
The one we're going to be watching, Ward 3. And school commissioner Liz Curry, who is Brian Pine's wife, I might add, who's the current incumbent.
And you told me, fascinatingly, that this is their son Eli, his first election where he will be able to vote, and so he can cast ballots for both of his parents.
So. Nice for Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, Ward 3 power couple. So there you go.
And she is, Ibnar is running against her
Yep, and Ibnar is a presence at many city council meetings. He is active with the Coalition for a Livable City, a grassroots organization, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think that though, that Liz, as the incumbent, probably has some advantage, but this is not someone who is just showing up out of nowhere in terms of local politics. He's engaged. So.
Okay, good. And we've got Ward 4, Kurt Wright, as you mentioned before, running unopposed.
Yep.
And Martina
Congratulations,
Bullock
Kurt.
also.
You don't have to knock on doors quite so much as you might this time of year.
But you do have to come to Channel 17 on town meeting night and,
That's right.
and talk with all of us.
We expect to see you here.
Ward 5, we're going to run through these kind of quick because we're running
Sure.
low on time. So Ward 5, City Council Chip Mason is the incumbent, running Jesse Warren, a progressive.
Yes.
Running against him in Ward 5. School Commissioner, big race in Ward 5. We have Susan Marie Harrington is the incumbent, and Nicole Twigg and Mike Fisher are running against her.
A crowded field, considering that many of these school commissioners are uncontested. And
Interesting.
To the late, or I shouldn't say the late, but to the board chair who's stepping down, Mark Porter, much to his chagrin, he has raised hell about the idea that at least 4 of the uncontested seats are either teachers in other districts, retired teachers, and there's even a woman whose husband is a paraeducator who is running uncontested. He sees a conflict of interest there in that, if they vote to increase teacher pay, there is a lot of, sort of benchmarking against other districts' salaries, and so he has tried to make that an issue. But when there's no one running against them, what kind of issue can you make out of it, really?
Right, unless someone decides it is a conflict of interest and doesn't allow them to vote. I mean, if there's something in place for that.
It's true, but
not yet.
we know of no write-in candidates. It could, this is something that could lead to some rewriting of the rules if people really see it as a problem, but I'd be surprised if it gets to that point.
Yeah, okay. Ward 6, Karen Paul is the Democratic incumbent, and she's got two folks, Joel Fitzgerald, a Republican, and Charles Simpson, a progressive who has also been involved in the Coalition for Livable
Yep,
Cities.
and he ran for that South District seat and unsuccessfully last year, but is also, yes, a regular presence at council meetings.
Okay. School Commissioner Stephanie Seguino has withdrawn, so Claire Wool will be the school commissioner from Ward 6.
Yep, she's very active in the PTA, I believe, and so it will not be a total stranger to these issues.
Okay. Ward 7, let's see, Ali Zhang is the Democrat progressive incumbent, and James Loop is running as an independent against her.
And Ali just won that seat in a special election when Tom Ayers stepped down, and I think he is a pretty strong candidate. It'd be tough to unseat him. He will have the benefits of incumbency, even though he's only been in office for a short time, because he is very active in the community and just ran a campaign in
name recognition.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Ward 8, that's that new nifty ward that they put together.
Oh,
there.
yes.
We've got.
I kind of like this race.
Yeah. Okay.
You have
Tell me about it.
Adam Roof,
yep,
an incumbent.
Independent.
Yep, and being challenged by progressive, who is a UVM student, Carter Neubauer, and this is a ward that if college students turned out to vote, they could be decisive because it has a big chunk of the UVM campus. I do think it is completely unknowable whether college students will vote for one of their own. In the past, that has not been. I mean, voter turnout in Ward 8 is comically low. And so I don't know if Carter can change that, but.
Okay. All right. And again, school commissioner both in Ward 7 and 8. The incumbents are running unopposed, Monica Ivancic and Keith Pillsbury.
Yeah.
So that's a
and Monica is the candidate there who I believe it's her that has the husband who's a paraeducator in the district. And that to me is probably the most legitimate and direct conflict of interest raised by Mark Porter. But again, no one's running against her, so they'll have to burn that bridge when they cross it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's move on to South Burlington. Interestingly, more races that are uncontested, which in past years they have been pretty exciting in South Burlington. So
I know.
It's quiet in South Burlington.
A quiet year for South Burlington.
Helen Reilly, the chair, and Megan Emery will both go back to City Council. And school director, let's see, there are some candidates for the 3-year term and the 2-year term. So there is some, but the folks have been, I mean, Elizabeth Fitzgerald has been there for 12 years, and Bridget Burkhardt has been there for 2 terms.
Always tough to unseat incumbents.
I think those are going to be tough, yeah. And interestingly, talking about teachers, one of the candidates, Tyler Samler, for the 2-year term is a Burlington teacher, But this is in South Burlington,
and again,
not uncommon.
I was reading in 7 Days, which just published an article on this. Darren Allen with the NEA says, look, this happens. There are lots of educators who want to be involved in their local community. And and so it is not entirely uncommon. And yeah.
Okay. City budget in South Burlington, it's a 3.84 increase, which for average house is $64, $44 for condos. So pretty minimal, I would say, overall increase. Drivers that Helen Reilly talked about the other night were, no surprise, healthcare, pensions, and union contracts.
Yeah.
Big drivers for the regular city budget.
Yep.
They've got a wastewater treatment facility. They're looking to do a bond situation where they had been getting sewage treatment from the Burlington plant. Burlington kept increasing the price to the point now where it makes more sense for them to do it themselves from their own facility.
Okay.
So there is a bond to do that, and I think in a year they make enough money back to pay for the bond. So it's it's a pretty obvious one for them. Public Safety Authority we talked about. School budget 0.85% increase. From the local, which of course increases.
And again,
with
costs being driven at the state level.
Similar,
same situation.
And then they also have.
And obviously on election night, we'll be watching for trends in those school budgets.
Absolutely.
But I feel like this fight has been had. I don't anticipate school budgets going down.
Across the board,
we'll see.
Of course, you never know. We've still got a few weeks
because
left.
I say that because I feel like there's probably some fatigue in voting down school budgets because it never leads to the type of reduction or property tax relief that people voting them down would like to see.
Right.
But property taxes continue to go up, people continue to express frustration with that, and it is a hot topic in the legislature trying to find ways to get out of this cycle.
Yep. And remind me, last year the South Burlington school budget went down, was
It
defeated.
did, several times.
Several times.
But that also had to do with not just property taxes, but what the controversy around the dropping the rebel name, and so there was that was sort of unique to South Burlington. I don't think we didn't see other school budgets face the same sort of problems. So.
Okay, and they also have a bond for less than $1 million for capital improvements in schools. And I think all the schools talk about this when they come, Channel 17, they come and talk about their school budgets, and they talk about this whole deferred maintenance. And, I mean, we just hear it over and over again. The buildings are getting old, you know, how they haven't been taken care of necessarily. Kind of the same problem with Memorial Auditorium to a huge degree. I mean, that's kind of the worst case scenario, right?
It's a sort of chronic problem in
down.
infrastructure around the country. I mean, you hear this
Especially
conversation
older
nationally.
towns. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see if the voters will go for that. That's South Burlington. Okay, Winooski.
Yes.
Now this is interesting, right?
Yes, I like
Seth
Winooski.
Leonard is running unopposed for mayor for
That's
another
true.
term,
Yep.
so we'll say that off the bat. But let's talk about council.
Yeah, so three-way race for 2 seats, and some interesting candidates here. Ebony Noy is a Black Lives Matter activist who has been very active in politics, you know, sort of regionally in pushing for more social justice and racial justice in schools and things like that. You also have Hal Colston, who has been working on similar issues.
As a write-in candidate.
As a write-in candidate,
Let's make
that's
sure we're
correct.
clear.
He's not on the
Because
ballot.
actually, Ebony and Christine both thought they were running unopposed. And
Oh.
then Hal came in just
Yes.
with the last week or so.
Which is interesting
Which is
because
very interesting.
Hal is somebody, you know, people know through the Good News Garage. He's a name that has recognition locally, but write-in candidate, if your name is not on the ballot, a lot of people might not know that you're an option. And so it'll be interesting to see if he's able to wage a successful write-in campaign. I believe that would take more ground game on his part, more door knocking.
Yeah,
but 3 good candidates, 2 seats. Will be interesting to see what happens there.
Okay, good. We are running out of time, of course. This always happens to us as we get talking, and there's so much to talk about.
True.
So, but don't
True.
forget, we're going to be back here on town meeting night, so we're going to give you much more insight from our
What else,
thoughts. Yeah, there are the big ones.
highlights?
I want to just mention Williston.
Sure.
Jump over there. The withdrawal from the Winooski Valley Park District. Now, I find this really interesting because we're talking about setting up this public dispatch,
Yes.
this regional dispatch. At the same time, Williston is saying they want out of
Or
one of these
another
political
regional
subdivisions,
yeah.
regional organizations. Yeah, so that is on the ballot, and my understanding is an issue about how the towns kick in money, what that formula is.
yeah.
Which not a big surprise, right? It comes down to money.
Yep.
Even if that's not why you're doing it, it
Yeah.
still comes down to money.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that'll
Totally.
be a very interesting one, I think, to watch.
Essex, it seems like their budget, I saw that includes a raise, a 3.5% raise for municipal employees.
Okay.
Let's see, and then, yeah, I don't see
There's
a
that
ton.
one seat, Actually, Essex is kind of interesting, city councilors in
Oh.
Essex. Remember that one?
Yes, this 3-year term.
Yes, because we've
Is that
got
a single seat?
We've got one open seat. Sue Cook's not running. We've got Timothy Farr. We've got Ramona Shepard, who lost the last election. She's the Underhill finance director, HR director.
Okay.
And Elaine Sobchak, who is a village trustee and is also running for the Essex Select Board.
Got
But
it.
the idea is if they ever get combined, they don't have to drop somebody off because you have to have an even number.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's
another
a really,
good race.
that'll be an
You
interesting
love
race to watch.
the, you know, fan of small d democracy.
Yep.
We want contested races. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, if we didn't have contested races, what would we do on town meeting night?
We'd have a lot less to talk
We have
about.
a lot less to talk about. So we should tell everybody. I told Morgan that everyone should go out and vote on Tuesday, March 6th. And of course, you know what he told me?
I managed to vote today. Go to your city offices and vote early. It's easy to do, takes very little time. You avoid the crowds.
Yep.
And so vote early.
So vote early if you don't need that connection with people like I need. I have to actually show up and wait online.
Nothing wrong with that.
But whatever it is, we want to make sure
There's a
that you vote.
good sense of civic engagement on town meeting day. It's fun
Absolutely.
to show up at the polls.
It is.
I won't have to because I'm not a reporter this year, so I won't have to go try and
okay.
interview people at the polls. But I will be here with you guys
Yes,
on
yes,
town
on-
meeting day,
on
so
town meeting
tune
day.
in.
Yes.
Love to have you.
And also tune in. Both of us will be doing a bunch of interviews,
Yes.
candidate debates,
All the way up to the
in-depth
election.
presentations on school board,
Check
for
it
the
out.
school board. You know, we're just going to be doing lots of work the next few weeks in bringing all this information to you.
Excited to be doing it.
So make sure you vote Tuesday, March 6th, and thanks so much for joining us.
Have a good night.